As Jamaica heads into one of its most watched general elections in recent years, all eyes are on the opposition People's National Party, but not necessarily for the reasons its leadership had hoped. Declining poll numbers, disjointed messaging, and internal tensions have raised questions about whether the party is sabotaging its own campaign. At the center of this emerging narrative is the two-leader dilemma, the formal leader and the firebrand de facto leader of the PNP. While the de facto leader holds no formal title within the current PNP executive hierarchy, his voice, presence, and influence, especially via party financing, remain formidable. But with his harsh and often vitriolic tone dominating recent political discourse, many within and outside of the party are asking, is the de facto leader doing more harm than good for the PNP? And more crucially, would the party fare better in the upcoming election if he stepped back? If only temporarily, recent national polls paint a sobering picture for the PNP. Support for Mark Golding, the formal party leader, is stagnating or declining, and the party itself struggles to gain traction with undecided and swing voters. At the same time, the Jamaica Labour Party JLP, led by Prime Minister Andrew Holness, continues to command stronger favorability ratings buoyed by high-profile policy successes such as the National Rural School Bus Program, a substantial reduction in violent crime, down 44% in the first half of 2025, wage increases for public sector workers, and continued economic stability. Instead of countering these gains with a fresh, visionary platform, the PNP has largely focused on aggressive attacks, often spearheaded by its de facto leader. His criticisms, often personal and inflammatory, while energizing to the party's hardcore base, appear to be alienating mainstream voters, particularly the younger, undecided demographic. The de facto leader's fiery rhetoric and confrontational political style have made him a dominant figure in the media and on the campaign trail. He is often the face, or voice, behind many of the PNP's most combative public statements, targeting everything from the JLP administration's handling of national security to their procurement of school buses for rural areas. Despite lacking an official frontline posting in the current campaign, the de facto leader's voice is still loud and clear, commanding media attention and often overshadowing the official pronouncements of the party's top brass. This has resulted in a two-headed messaging dilemma. On one side is Golding's attempt at seriousness and civility, on the other is the second leader's passionate, if abrasive, critique of the government. The lack of coordination is feeding a perception of disunity and desperation. Political observers argue that continuing this approach can spell electoral disaster, not just for the PNP as a party, but for its long-term efforts to rebuild public trust. As one political analyst recently puts it, the de facto leader is commanding volume, but he's not controlling the message. And when the noise outstrips policy vision, the party loses its way. There's a growing school of thought that if the de facto leader were to temper his public appearances and, instead, let the official party leader Mark Golding take center stage with a more composed vision for Jamaica's future, the PNP might begin to regain credibility, particularly among undecided voters wary of political theatrics. Mark Golding, though less fiery, is widely perceived as more measured and policy-oriented. Allowing Golding's voice to be the dominant one heading into the final weeks may allow the party to shift focus from disjointed to competence. However, here lies the conundrum. The de facto leader wields enormous behind-the-scenes influence, not just as a strategist, but as a key financier of the PNP's election machinery. Pulling back from the spotlight is, therefore, not merely a symbolic gesture. It would represent a significant disruption in the party's internal dynamics. His financial and operational clout makes a potential retreat from frontline campaigning highly unlikely, even if it would benefit the electoral optics of the PNP. As the general election countdown accelerates, the PNP has the critical choices: double down on the de facto leader's aggressive campaign style, hoping that it rallies support from their strongest base, or recenter the narrative around leadership and Mark Golding's calmer approach aimed at undecided and cautious voters. Which direction the party chooses may very well determine whether the PNP can mount a serious challenge or if they'll fade into political irrelevance. For the de facto leader, the decision to step back may not come naturally, but for the PNP, whose electoral future now hangs in the balance, it's becoming clear that voter fatigue with political aggression may be a bigger threat than any government policy. Let's hear your thoughts on this. Do remember to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.